All right, I think it's running now. Hello, everyone. Um, Heather couldn't make it today, so I thought I'd just run this myself. We have several questions that came up, many asking how to connect, dealing with how to connect over the holidays. So, as always, if you have any questions, be sure and comment, and I'll be able to see that. I'll try to get in as many as possible. But for now, I'll just go ahead and answer some of the ones that we already have listed here. So we'll start off with one. Let's see. Mickey Meisner is asking how they're saying somehow healing they want to know how to heal the relationship with her in-laws. She mentions that they've been cruel and abusive towards her and her sons, and somehow they're expected to just smile and just put on a happy face because it's Christmas. They think that okay, they only have two choices: either to stay at home and feel left out, hold on to the boundaries, or you know get into that area and feel uncomfortable. Now, what I'm gonna say here is that those are not the only two options. It doesn't have to be feel left out of the holidays and feel left out of all the celebration, and it doesn't have to be step into that arena and put up a fight and be have a lot of unpleasantness go on. The key here is that ideally here is that you have a key ally with your in-laws, and that should be your spouse. And this goes for all cases. If there's problems between you and your in-laws, then you need to go to support get support from your husband or wife. Now, that's not always doesn't always end up going very smoothly. It's quite possible that when you go to your husband or your wife about their family, they might bristle up a little bit. They might get defensive. They might make excuses for them. And it's understandable that they do this. The reason is because, well, I mean, they're used to that, the way that their family is. They grew up in that environment, and so in some ways it makes a lot of sense. These are people who are very close to them as well, and so it can sometimes come off as a little, you know, aggressive when you're bringing up problems about your in-laws. The key here then is sharing it in such a way that does not put up defenses, that actually helps the two of you work together as a team. You can do this especially well if you, instead of using accusatory language, blaming language, aggressive language, if you are instead describing it from your point of view and how you're feeling about the situation. So, in other words, it's one thing in the case of this question, Mickey uses the words that her in-laws have been cruel and abusive and awful, that she has to be fake. These are, and if she were to use a lot of these words when just, bringing this up with, with her spouse here, then it's going to come off as that having that aggressive stance, and those defenses are going to go up, and Mickey isn't going to have that ally that she needs. So instead, I would suggest describing it from Mickey's point of view, as in, you know what, when I go over to your family's house, it's really difficult for me. I feel uncomfortable. There's some tension. I feel like there's tension between me and your family. I feel like at times that they might be that maybe they don't understand our children, my sons, and that for me that's really difficult. Coming from that point of view, it's lending some understanding, and from there, after you lend that understanding, you move towards cooperation. So you can then invite your spouse to join you in solving this problem. So you explain it, and then you ask, okay, what can we do about this to make this better? And that really smooths things over in many cases. From there, if necessary, your spouse can be the one that goes to the in-laws and defends you. Your spouse can be the one that can be the mediator between you and your in-laws. And having that ally is going to be key in making it a much more smooth and pleasant experience. Going on to the next question from Debbie Sparkles, who says, I've been diagnosed with liver cancer. I'm going through chemo and I don't have my husband's full support on anything. He does drive me to my appointments, but he's only there while they're prepping, and then he leaves and comes back when it's done. He's been distant. He isolates her, doesn't talk to her, ignores her. And she says that I've asked him how he's feeling, but he won't say a word to me. So she also goes on to say he's shamed me a few times in front of others, and I'm not sure what issues he's going through. But I'd really like to get this nightmare out of the way and enjoy my holidays in peace. Now, right off the bat, I would initially say, okay, he's likely feeling a lot of stress, a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety about the diagnosis himself. But given that you've been attempting to ask him how he's feeling, tells me that there's something a little bit more. It's very possible that he doesn't feel comfortable sharing some of these fears. It's possible that he doesn't want to add any added pressure into the situation, and he wants to appear strong, or maybe he doesn't have the skills to share his feelings. You know, not all men grow up learning those kind of skills. In any other situation, I would say it's a matter of communication and really figuring out what is going on with the husband here, because by and large, I mean, the information that we have, we know that something's going on with him, that he's acting differently, and we don't know why. And not knowing why, there's a lot of assumptions that are coming up. For instance, you know, or not just assumptions, but this narrative building up, the story building up. You know, Debbie here is saying that he's not supporting her, that he's isolating her, that he's shaming her, that he ignores her. When, you know, there might be evidence for these sort of things, the real issue is probably likely something more benign. He's probably not intentionally causing harm here. You know, most people don't intentionally ignore their wife. They don't intentionally try and shame their wife. That would be an odd behavior and would indicate something completely different. But in this case, my guess is that not all the information is there. And so we're left with what information we do have. And like I said, this story, this narrative, these beliefs start building up that, okay, Debbie's husband is doing all these negative things on purpose, possibly. So my suggestion there is, you know, like in many cases, it was we address the barrier, we address what's getting in the way. So instead of starting off talking about feelings, it would be to address, you know, like how he's feeling about this diagnosis. It'd be, the next step would be to address his inability to share. Talk about that for a moment. You know, just bring up, for instance, asking him, you know, it seems like you've been really distant, and you know, I've been trying to ask you how you feel, and it doesn't seem like you're comfortable sharing that with me. You know, what's going on there? And then, you know, it's also still very likely that he might resist that, and so, you know, my suggestion is to not let go on that so much. It's okay to put a little bit of pressure, not in a negative sort of way, but, you know, in a caring and understanding sort of way. Just give a little bit of nudge, a little bit of care, and a little bit of showing a little bit of love. And in most cases, you know, barring any sort of bigger issue, that should help in helping him to feel comfortable to share with you. Okay. So going on here, we have another um, another problem is someone, this one a little bit being shared anonymously. This person is having trouble being happy with themselves, and especially around the holidays. I can understand how that's difficult. There's a lot of expectations around this time of year, expectations to have joyful holidays, to have a happy, to build memories, to be and do so many things, even apart from all the everyday stresses. And how can you do all that and be satisfied with yourself? I could approach this from two different angles. On one side, we could say, um, this is just a matter of thinking in the right way, believing that you are actually, worthy of being happy, that you could be happy. And on the other side, there's the actually doing something with your circumstances to help you to be, to give you that evidence to be happy with yourself. And, you know, really the ultimate answer here is, no one way is going to help an individual be completely happy with themselves. It usually takes a multi-dimensional approach, working on their thoughts and beliefs, working on their behaviors, working, actually trying to adjust how they feel about things. By and large, one of the things that I suggest to pretty much everyone that I work with at some point or another is the practice of meditation. Just because meditation is such a helpful way to adjust your thoughts and adjust how you feel about things. So specifically with this sort of issue about being satisfied with yourself or being happy with yourself, having a practice of, practice feeling that happiness towards yourself. Practice giving yourself affirmations, being satisfied, being proud of yourself, and taking some time to train your brain to allow that to happen. Because absolutely, being satisfied with yourself, being happy with yourself is a skill that can be learned. There are people who are destitute, who are going through unimaginable trials and challenges, who are happy with themselves, and that's because they have had that practice. And so when something difficult comes up, it comes as second nature. The same way we can practice that ourselves just by taking some time to do it. And as we get used to that process of being happy, about saying kind things to ourselves, it becomes second nature. Now, on the other side of that is actually changing circumstances to actually, give some evidence that things are all right. Some of the big things that can move you forward there is, really identifying what's getting in the way of being happy. Creating some goals to actually move toward, eliminate those barriers, and identifying what kind of things would help you to be happy with yourself, creating goals to get you there. Broad goals, long-term goals, but then breaking that down into steps that you can work on each day. But between changing your circumstances and practicing holding that sense of happiness of self, that can really make a huge difference. It's going to take time, it takes effort, but it happens. And, especially around this time of year, giving some extra thought to yourself and to taking time to care for yourself, your own well-being, your own mental health is especially important. Otherwise, we just kind of get burned out. And I've seen too many times where people get overly stressed around the holidays and it blows up in their face. That's not what we want for you guys. So I'm going to take one more question here. There is someone, Jennifer Pomeroy. She was asking about how to keep stress to herself, and especially about finances and not adding pressure to whatever's going on even currently. Especially with right now, most people have extra expenses sitting on their plates. And so I completely understand wanting to know about this issue right here. You know, even if you're not celebrating Christmas, there's a number of other holidays, there's other things going on that are most likely adding to financial stress. Um, and especially if you are the one that takes care of those finances, that can be doubly difficult because here you are, and this burden is on you. So not knowing what the situation here is that she's mentioning, but I'm guessing that there's other issues going on. But okay, let's focus in on the finance problem here. The first thing that comes to my mind is if there's too much stress, too much pressure because of this one issue, that's something that needs to be discussed with Jennifer, with your husband. So if this issue is too big, it's time to share the load a little bit. It's very possible that your husband is overly busy. It's possible that he has a number of his own responsibilities. It may be that something else is getting in the way of sharing that responsibility. But it's, even if that's the case, something needs to change if stress is getting in the way, or if it's causing other problems within the relationship, if it's causing you to not show up to the relationship well, if it's causing fighting, if it's causing problems, something needs to change. So, I mean, there's a number of ways that could happen, whether that's, reducing things that you're spending money on, whether that's sharing the financial responsibilities. Something needs to change, and that for that to happen, a discussion needs to happen with your husband. Now, if previously he hasn't been the one to deal with finances, and that's primarily been your job, then the situation needs to ease into this change. We can't just all of a sudden expect your husband to take on these responsibilities, to perform them well, to not get stressed, and to be happy about it. I mean, ideally that would be the case, but if we want to make things go smoothly, then come up with a plan. A further suggestion is to, in order to help him to understand how you're feeling, start with that. Start with discussing the stress over the finances. Discuss it as if, like I've suggested before, as if it is completely your problem, without any blame, without any attacks, without any negativity. Just discuss how you're feeling about that, and then move from there to some cooperation, move towards working together as a team to solve this problem. Ideally, like I said, once you share and once he understands how this is impacting you and how this is affecting you, and then you invite him to work on that as a team, ideally you can come up with a solution that's that works for both of you. But absolutely, that's something needs to change there. And I wouldn't worry about adding pressure to the situation, because already right now, if you're stressed, if you're overworked, if you're feeling too much is going on, then whatever the situation is, you're not showing up to the best of your ability with this added stress. And so that's going to add pressure, it's going to add problems to this situation as well. And so we can't have that happening either. So let's at least start with this solution. If you need to give some more details, or if you need to have some follow-up questions, please feel free to post it in the group. We'll see what we can do about it. But already that's we're running a bit over time here. But please ask us some questions. We'll be continuing to run these live streams every Thursday at this time. It's 1 o'clock Eastern. We'd love to help you out and love to give you some support. So ask away, and we'll see what we can do to help you. All right. I hope you all have a a wonderful Christmas. I hope you are able to spend it with the people that are close to you, and I'll see you next week.